It's that time again. It's Monday. We're going to talk about the meta. We're going to talk about some tournaments, some spicy lists, and talk about the state of the meta based on my playtime. Yeah, let's get into it. All right, everyone. Welcome back. Aeneas here. So it's Monday again. We're talking about the meta and what's going on. And I'm feeling a little bit of a broken man right now because the meta has kind of settled. Not a whole lot of new brews are working out for me. Um, and I'm a little bit sad with the outcome, but let's talk about what's going on so far. So, in best of one, so far in the recent meta, we see a lot of Zori soldiers, a lot of mono red, a lot of Selesnya toxic, and then a little bit of these mid-range decks with mono black Esper and mono white, stuff like that. And Azorius Soldiers very strong, still the most dominant one. Mono Red also doing very well, though today looks like they're not doing as great as normal. But yeah, overall, if we look at the overall rankings, Mono White and Azorius are still really good. Naya is still very good. Gruul is good. Surprised Mono Red is not as high up on there, but maybe a lot of people have just not been playing it recently. Like the really good players haven't been playing it. So it's a little bit lower as of recent. But yeah, as you'll see, we'll talk about a little bit later, but just very aggro dominant in the meta right now. Very hard to deal with. Very powerful. Kind of wish Meat Hook Massacre was unbanned, to be honest. For best of one at least, because it would make it a lot better. But yeah, anyway. So let's talk about best of three. So in best of three, it's a little bit of a different story. Got a lot of the mid-range decks doing pretty well. Grixis mid-range, Esper mid-range. And Mono Red is still good though, and Toxic deck's still good. Mono White's still good. And Azorius Soldiers, not even on the most popular in best of three, kind of surprising, but still very strong in best of three as well. Just not as played, it seems like. If we look at the tier list, Esper, Rakdos, Mono Red, Toxic, Grixis. If we go back a little bit further in time, you'll see Soldiers is still very good, just nobody's really playing it in best of three right now for the last week. So that's why we don't see it up there, but it's still very strong. Okay, so that's kind of it for the what's going on in standard. As you can see, kind of same old, right? Like, to be honest, last set and this set, now that it's settled down, not a lot of changes, right? That's pretty disappointing. I know in part of it's people are not experimenting that much, but also just the cards that were out are already just very potent and it's hard to find good replacements. Yeah, anyway, but let's talk about tournaments. There was a lot of tournaments over this weekend. I'm just going to talk about the really big ones, but yeah, as you can see, there's quite a few. So Pizza Box won. The winner of this one is Mono White Midrange. Mono Black also doing very well. Esper third place, and fourth place Mono Black Aggro. So kind of a strange takedown on this one. Mono White Midrange hasn't been doing very well recently, but they somehow made it work for this one. And Mono Black also not been winning a lot for a really long time, I would say. So somehow they're doing okay again. And then Esper is always pretty good, so makes sense that that's up there. All right, we got another tournament here. I guess they didn't have to submit their deck list, so some of them don't have their deck list. But if we look at some of the ones that did well, there are some interesting things. So this is just an Atraxa Reanimator list by the looks of it. Yeah, I think they're kind of all Grixis Reanimator style things. This one has some special cards like Razor Slash Transmogrant. I guess for the exile effect. This one has Blade Coil Serpent, but yeah, all pretty similar in general. So nothing too special on that one. This one, mono white, and this is the one deck that I thought was pretty cool. 4-color Legends. So it has Kaito, Danik, Malira, Rustine, Urtai, Shieldred, Raffine, Dahlia, Ao, so, Glissa, just like all the really good legendary creatures in one pile. So it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's Esper because they've got green, white, black. Do they have blue? They have blue. So this is like, this is 5-color, isn't it? It says 4, but yeah. Pretty crazy to see the 5-color legend pile, but I guess the mana is just good enough that you can do it, and it got second place in this huge tournament. So pretty cool. Other than that, I think the rest wasn't too terribly interesting. Just kind of the standard decks that have been doing well. Alright, this tournament was taken down by Esper Legends, and then Grixis Reanimator is pretty close behind. So yeah, those are also pretty more standard decks. Esper and Grixis still doing well. And then I think this last tournament had one interesting deck that took it down, the Rakdos Aggro. One we haven't really seen, but it's kind of like a mono red splashing black because they have Ob Nixilis. And they have, I thought they had another one. Oh, Go for the Throat here. So really they've just got 2 black cards. The rest is all the mono red deck. But I guess it gives them some nice removal for like Shieldred and some reach with Obnixilis. So yeah, that kind of, I guess, is probably one-ups you a little bit against the other mono red opponents, or even against some of the mid-range decks because you have the better removal. Yeah, interesting. So that one and this 4-color Legends deck, both pretty cool to see that they took down a tournament with kind of a homebrew of sorts. So the ingenuity is not dead, but yeah, it's pretty stale, I would say. The format is getting pretty stale. All right, let's look at some of the people's brews that they got to Mythic with. So this one is a Rakdos deck, but this one has a lot more black in it. I guess this is more like a mono black deck splashing red, as opposed to the red splashing black. So it just has the Fable, Blood Tithe Harvester, and Kumano in there for the red sources. Also has the Razor Lash Transmogrant that some people have been playing recently. And the rest are just some good black cards. Archfiend was very good early on, but people stopped playing it. Not sure why, maybe because of Traxa decks. But yeah, it's coming back now that Atraxa is kind of getting pushed out of the meta. Other than that, it's a cool deck, and yeah, this person had a 74% win rate with like around 50 games played, so that's very respectable. And so seems like it's a good deck. We also got this other person, Sasha Coulter. They always do very well. Mythic, they got to 67 Mythic with this domain deck, 79% win rate. And this one I am very interested in because I've been trying to make domain work a lot, and I really love that Sphinx of Clear Skies card, but I couldn't find a good deck for it. Drag to the Bottom also very solid. So they did seem to get it working for them. Might be something that I would be willing to try out on the ladder because it seems pretty cool. Alrighty, then moving along, we've got a Esper control list that somebody got to Mythic with. Maybe this is the shell to be playing control with. I haven't seen a lot of other decks with control do particularly well in the format. I've had some success, but often you can be good against some of the meta, but then best of one is very fickle and it can change on you. So yeah, I think Farewell is still a very useful card when you're playing control, so it's hard to play a deck without it. And Wandering Emperor is also very good. I see a lot of people playing Jace. I still don't love Jace. Like, once you're winning, it does wrap up the game quite quickly because you play one Jace, you mill them a bunch, you get another, like you can draw some cards, get another Jace, mill them the rest of their deck. So usually 2 Jaces is enough to win the game. But But early game, I don't know. It just dies on me a lot. It dies to Invoke Despair. It dies against Mono Red because they have Hasty Creatures, which you can't put the -3 on. Bankbuster, you can't -3 on. So I'm not sure. It just hasn't been super great whenever I've played with it. But yeah, they made it work. And I guess a large part of it is they have so much early removal here. Cut down, Edict, go for the throat. Especially cut down. Every time I face Thalia and I don't have cut down or 1 mana removal, it just feels so bad on the draw. So yeah, I think probably you do have to have cut down, you do have to have farewell if you're gonna play some sort of control deck. And then the rest of it's kind of whatever you can fit in there. All right. And then also I do have some historic lists here that I found people got to Mythic with. So this is like a historic flash deck. It's a Bant Flash, which it's the first time I've seen this, but I guess it's been a thing for a little bit. And Frilled Mystic, Nightpack, and Embrasure, those are the typical ones. It kind of gives me PTSD back when this wasn't standard, but so horrible to play against, but people really love it. And this person's trying out some new cards like Academy Lore Master, Fragment Reality, they even have Mana Tithe in here, etc. So it's an interesting take on the deck at least, and I could see how it could be pretty good against the format of Historic right now. With the Exile and the Mana Tithe is actually surprisingly good in Historic because nobody plays around the 1 mana counters very often. So yeah, pretty cool. Also we have Rich here. He's the unluckiest player, supposedly, but he made it to Mythic in Historic, playing this combo list here, which is pretty standard. But I also thought this one was pretty cool. This green-black company deck with Fiend Artisan and Tyvar and Priest of the Forgotten Gods, which gives you kind of like the instant sack effect. So that's pretty sweet. Yeah, I think it's a cool concept. I haven't seen anybody else playing it and having success with it, so the fact that they got it working for them in Historic is pretty cool. And then lastly, we have this other Historic deck, which is a Jund Historic deck. Of course, has Crucius, the most broken card in Historic right now by far, and really needs a nerf, to be honest. But I know some people really like Jund, so I wanted to share this one. Personally, not my cup of tea, but it's some sort of Jund sack deck, and yeah, seems pretty strong. All right, so that's it for the spicy decks. But yeah, I just want to talk about the meta a little bit. I did mention a few things already, but I think the meta is very settled now. We have maybe a week until the next remastered set comes out, which will be nice to kind of spice things up a little bit. But in the meantime, standard is pretty stale. It's kind of just come down to nothing has changed really. Like the Azori Soldiers deck got no new cards. It's still very good. Sometimes they play Ossification, but that's like the only new card they picked up. You know, Mono White is also very strong still. The Mono Red deck is very strong still. That one got no new cards either, and it's just very, very dominant. Especially in best of one. If they go first, I don't even know if it's possible. Like, I guess if you have another creature deck which has slightly more toughness creatures, like 4 toughness creatures, then yeah, you can probably make it. It's hard to say though, because they have a lot of reach as well, like lightning, right? Lightning bolt, no, lightning strike, and play with fire. And they have like the thundering raiju, and then they have like all the recursion from the graveyard with Squee and the Phoenix chick and stuff like that. So even if you get ahead, very often you still lose because they just have all this recursion and reach and stuff. Yeah, it's just so hard to deal with them. So it's very scary. The soldiers deck doesn't feel oppressive, but it's also one where like if they get the right soldier at the right time and you don't have the right answer for it, then they can just win. Also, they have a lot of flying. Yeah, especially that the 2-drop that when they swing in with 5 creatures, they all get flying. That is like the thing I lose to the most often because you'll have like blockers on board and then they'll swing in with that and they don't even have to swing in with it. They just play it and swing in with 5 creatures and they all get flying and they win the game. So pretty crazy. I don't think rotation is gonna really solve that because all those cards came in the last set. And mono red also won't lose a whole lot when rotation happens. Plus, we're not even having rotation yet for a while. So I don't know why I'm really talking about it. But yeah, I'm a little bit scared that we're gonna get the March of the Machines and nothing is gonna change. So I hope not. Hope Wizards of the Coast is gonna realize that. Well, I mean, they had to realize 2 years ago when they made the set, but hopefully they realize that aggro is very strong. Or maybe they'll unban Meat Hook Massacre, and that will help kind of tame the aggro down a little bit. But yeah, it's really strong right now, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it in best of 1 at least. Best of 3, you have some answers. Esper mid range does very well because it's just kind of like a little bit bigger than the aggro decks, but more value. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of your choices right now. You either play best of 1 and you play aggro, and sometimes you can get by with the Atraxa decks if you have the right shell of it. Or you can play best of 3 and you can play Esper, or you can play Grixis, or basically any of the decks that were good before. Mono white mid range or mono black or something, but they're like tier 2. Yeah, so I'm kind of resigned at this point. I mean, I'm never giving up. I always like to still try new things, but every time I try a new deck, I lose a rank or something on the ladder. It's so demoralizing. At this point, I probably should just take one of the meta decks and just get up to Mythic and then be done with it. But where's the fun in that? Doesn't make for fun videos, right? Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the meta. I know it's a little bit depressing, but seems like that's where things have kind of headed. So I am looking forward to the remastered set coming out, Innistrad Remastered, in about a week, because Snapcaster Mage will be really nice. And there's a few cards there that looked like they'd be a good fit for the historic Dimir Clock deck that I was playing, which was kind of like a tier 2 Dimir deck. But with Snapcaster Mage, it might bump it up a little bit, make it good again. So Crucius is still just oppressively strong in Historic and Alchemy, so I hope there'll be some changes to that in the near future, but we'll see. All right, well, that's it for the Monday meta update. Let me know what you think. Do you still have hope for some new brews, or what? Do you have any interesting decks that you're playing? Let me know in the comments. Be interesting to see and check those out. Yeah, but until next time, see ya.